Hello and welcome. You're watching Beyond World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look as to what is making headlines at this hour. The mock drills for civilian preparedness have been carried out in the border states across India. Exercises carried out in various places included Rajasthan, Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir.
Point accuracy and targets.
This is a strike on the moon.
And India's Chief of Defence Staff Anil Chauhan says Operation Sindoor was able to penetrate air defences as long as 300 kilometres with accuracy and targeted airfields and infrastructure deep inside Pakistan. Now, Israel is accusing Iran of being determined of acquiring a nuclear weapon. This after a UN report says that the Islamic Republic has stepped up its production of enriched uranium. Ukraine claims Russian missiles and drones launched a massive attack on various parts of the Sumy region, and it orders for the evacuation of about 11 villages due to bombardment. And China condemns the speech by the US Defense Chief Pete Hegseth, warning Beijing's Asian military ambitions. Says that his words are steeped in provocation and instigation. And South Koreans take to the street in Seoul with pro and anti-former President Yoon Suk-yeol demonstrators waving flags and also chanting slogans. This on the final weekend before a snap presidential election. And COVID-19 infections surge across India for the first time in 2 years. 3,395 cases have been reported so far. Kerala has accounted for the highest number of infections with 1,336 infections being recorded, followed by Maharashtra and Delhi. Cheering spectators and Dragon Boat Race teams roar to life as Hong Kong celebrates its annual Dragon Boat Festival.
It was supposed to be a night to remember for Shakira fans. The pop star cancelled her Saturday night performance at Nationals Park, part of the opening weekend of World Pride 2025, a global LGBTQ+ celebration happening now in Washington, D.C. Organisers say equipment problems from her cancelled Boston show meant her full stage setup couldn't make it to D.C. on time. The Capital Pride Alliance says the opening ceremony will be relocated, but the full schedule of Pride events will go ahead as planned. While international turnout is down due to backlash against President Trump's LGBTQ+ policies, tourism officials say US interest is picking up and strong crowds are expected in the final day.
A bill set to be signed into law in Texas will strictly define gender as either male or female based on a person's reproductive organs. The legislation passed by state lawmakers now sits on Governor Abbott's desk, with his office confirmed to The Hill he intends to sign it. Abbott's spokesperson tells the news outlet the state recognizes only two sexes, male and female. Governor Abbott looks forward to reaffirming this universal truth and signing HB 229 into law. The measure will require transgender and non-binary Texans to revert documents like IDs and other identifying material to their sex assigned at birth. It also imposes restrictions on transgender girls in single-sex spaces like girls' locker rooms and restrooms. Riley Gaines, a well-known opponent of transgender women in female sports, celebrated the legislation's passage on X, calling it common sense and saying it simply defines and codifies sex-based terms. Texas Values, a Christian nonprofit, also hailed the legislation. In a statement on X, the organization said the bill sends a message. You don't mess with Texas women. HB 229 makes sure that the reality and truth of two sexes is clear in Texas law and never altered by school districts, local cities, or bureaucrats ever again. The author of the bill, Representative Ellen Troxclair, says it protects women and recognizes biological reality. The move follows Abbott's directive for the state to recognize only two sexes earlier this year, citing a similar executive order from President Trump. Opponents of the expected law contend it fails to acknowledge the complexities of sex and gender. They fear the bill will lead to discrimination against transgender and non-binary Americans.
I think if the law forces a non-binary Texans who are real people into categories that don't reflect their lived experiences or identities, then those who uses those categories to decide rights, services, and protections, that would actually become discrimination in practice. And I'm not sure if you're concerned about that outcome. That's a concern that I have.
The sponsor of the bill, State Senator Mays Middleton, says the legislation doesn't carry civil or criminal penalties.
Flavors like menthol, bubble gum, and cotton candy are masking the harshness of tobacco and nicotine products, turning them into youth-friendly bait, the World Health Organization says. Flavors not only make it harder to quit, but have also been linked to serious lung diseases.
From flavors to bright colors and flashy designs, tobacco, nicotine, and other products are designed to lure people, and especially young people, into a cycle of addiction and to sustain current users. These products are addictive, toxic, and harmful.
The 2025 World No Tobacco Day campaign honors governments and civil society leaders pushing back against industry interference.
This World No Tobacco Day, WHO issues a clear call to action. Ban all flavors in tobacco, nicotine, and related products. Prohibit all advertising, promotions, and sponsorships, especially across social media. And implement plain packaging. So altogether, let's strip away the glamour and expose the dangers of tobacco.
With around 8 million tobacco-related deaths each year, the time for action is now, the WHO says. Cigarettes, which still kill up to half of their users, also come in flavors or can have flavors added to them.
To be with Elon, who's my friend, and he's done a fantastic job. Many of the Doge people, Elon, are staying behind too, so they're not leaving. And Elon's really not leaving. He's going to be back and forth, I think. I have a feeling. It's his baby, and I think he's going to be doing a lot of things. Give it to Elon as a presentation from our country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elon.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was just horsing around with the Lex, and I said, go ahead, punch me in the face, and he did it. Turns out even a 5-year-old punching you in the face actually does.
That was X that did that?
Yeah.
X could do it. If you knew X, you
I
could
with
do
his
it.
mom right now. But I didn't really feel much at the time, and then I guess it bruises up. But I just horsing around with the kids.
I didn't notice it, actually.
To some breaking news just in now, and US President Donald Trump has just announced he's doubling America's current tariff rate on steel imports from 25% to 50%. Federal politics reporter Claudia Radoljak is across this for us. Claudia, this will affect Australian manufacturers.
Yeah, it could, Lizzie. It's one of our biggest exports, but the details are still yet to be confirmed. The news breaking within the last 15 minutes that tariffs on steel imports into the United States will be doubled from 25% to 50%, which is just extraordinary. The first wave of tariffs were announced by President Donald Trump. They came into effect during Australia's federal election campaign about a month ago, and the move angered Australian industry. Our federal government has been fighting for an exemption. The Prime Minister labelled it bad for our relationship with our closest security partner. Today, the White House is claiming the tax will be raised again to further protect America's steel industry from foreign influence and unfair competition. Here is the US President Donald Trump speaking moments ago.
We are going to be imposing a 25% increase. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel into the United States of America, which will even further secure the steel industry.
You can see the US President Donald Trump addressing steel workers at a facility in the US there not long ago, and he received a huge applause. Now, back in 2018, Australia did manage to secure a deal with the United States that took several months. So the fight certainly isn't over, but we are dealing with a very different Donald Trump, and it is unclear whether there is a carve-out for Australia. We're yet to hear from our own government as well, Lizzie.
Claudia Vrdoljak with that breaking news.
Now, millions of Muslims are arriving at the holy city of Mecca for the Hajj pilgrimage, and this is set to start from the 4th of June. The Saudi authorities estimate that Mecca will host as many as about 1.8 million Muslims from across the world. And ahead of the Hajj, thousands of Muslims on Saturday braved the searing heat to offer their prayers at the sacred Kaaba. Now, Hajj marks a once-in-a-lifetime obligation for every Muslim who's able to. The pilgrimage consists of a series of rituals that were first performed by Prophet Muhammad 1400 years ago in the holy city of Mecca. Now, this year, Saudi Arabia is taking a series of measures to facilitate the smooth Hajj pilgrimage, especially after the hot weather disaster last year that led to the deaths of hundreds of people. With Hajj coinciding with Mecca's peak heat summer season, this year, Saudi authorities have deployed hundreds of air conditioning units, ventilation systems, and also mist fans.
We increased the shaded areas and walkways by more than 50,000 square meters. And also we established more than 400 water cooling units. On the other aspect, also we worked on new flooring technologies that reduce the heat when people walk in the different walkways.
To counter overcrowding that authorities held responsible for last year's disaster, several measures being taken to deal with non-registered visitors. But those travelling without a permit to Mecca could face a ban of up to 10 years from the Saudi kingdom or even face deportation. Now, arriving in Mecca for Hajj, pilgrims are expressing their joy and also gratitude. Listen in.
I have wanted to come here for a long time to see the Kaaba. This is the first time I see it, and I am very, very, very happy that I am seeing the Kaaba. I am very, very happy and pleased. I asked God for it, and praise be to God, God has given it to me. Praise be to God.
Japan, which has been struck with another earthquake in the early hours of this morning. This detailed report telling you what happened.
Yet another earthquake in Japan. This time the magnitude was 6.1 on the Richter scale. Tremors hitting Osaka, Japan's second biggest metropolis, early on Monday morning. 3 people have been killed and over 300 injured. Buildings swing, cracked roads and burst water pipes were a common sight all around. The quake struck around 8 a.m. local time. Usually the traffic is at its peak at that time. Osaka is home to around 2 million people, and clearly the jolt's impact was palpable. The quake knocked over walls, broke windows and set off scattered building fires. A 9-year-old girl is among the 3 dead. The earthquake caused power failures across the region, forcing hospitals to be evacuated. Factory operations were halted and the famous bullet trains came to a grinding halt. Anxious and worried commuters were left stranded. Many chose to sit down on the floor. Amid the gloom, the good news was that no tsunami warnings were issued. Bureau Report Beyond.
A massive hole opened up in California along the front street at a construction site in downtown Ventura. While no injuries were reported, residents were displaced from some residential units as the site was red-tagged by authorities.
Emergency responders are fighting dozens of wildfires in Canada as thousands have fled their homes in Manitoba. The province is now in its 3rd day of a state of emergency. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew said Friday the 17,000 evacuees from Manitoba have mostly made their way to Winnipeg as nearly 24 wildfires rage in the province. Members of the Canadian Armed Forces are transporting evacuees via helicopter out of a community located north of Flin Flon, a town on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border.
We do expect some very, very challenging conditions in Flin Flon and in the surrounding community, particularly later this afternoon. The situation there is very, very serious, and we are doing everything that we can to preserve life, but also to preserve people's livelihoods and homes in the region.
Firefighters are having difficulty controlling the fire. Water bombers, aircraft used to drop water on the fires, have had to pause operations at times because of thick smoke and a drone entering restricted airspace, the Associated Press reported. The U.S. has sent 125 American firefighters to help fight the blazes.
That's 100 firefighters proper, and then 25 managerial workers who will be able to provide logistical supports. And now turning to our neighbors from the south to help us in our time of need. Not too long after we had Winnipeg firefighter in Los Angeles helping Americans during their time of need, it really does just underline how serious this situation is.
According to the Canadian government, as of Friday, 57 uncontrolled wildfires are burning across the country. 19 are being held, 40 are considered controlled, and 19 are with modified responses. Officials say the weather has been the biggest obstacle in getting the fires under control. They're expecting the winds to pick up Friday night, which could cause the fires to expand or even change direction. Saskatchewan is also under a state of emergency where more than 8,000 Canadians have fled.
Let's move on to West Africa now. Flash floods and torrential rains have claimed over 150 people in the central Nigerian town of Mokwa. The floods have damaged 265 houses and washed away 2 connecting bridges, displacing over 3,000 residents in the market town. Nigeria's State Emergency Department says the death toll is likely to mount further as the powerful Niger River is known to sweep away bodies for several kilometers. The state of Niger has been prone to frequent flooding in recent times. Early in April, Mokwa faced a spell of destruction after water released from one of the dams washed away over 5,000 farms in the market town. Floods are striking the commercial hub of Mokwa for the 6th time this year. The current destruction comes at only the start of the rainy season that is projected to last over 6 months. Scientists are warning that the erratic rainfall caused by climate change is being aggravated by inadequate drainage and poor infrastructure. A historically catastrophic flood struck Nigeria last year, inundating 31 of its 36 states and leading to over 1,200 casualties and 1.2 million displacements.
In Bentiu, South Sudan, people are living on a small area of dry land. Most of the land around them is still covered by floodwater from heavy rain in 2020. Every rainy season brings new danger as water levels rise again and threaten homes and camps.
Now, people are living terribly. There is no water. As you can see, the water is running the area.
But the danger isn't over yet. More heavy rains are expected.
I would say we wish, of course, we didn't have the dikes in place. We didn't have the flooding and the dikes were not required. But unfortunately, we have the dikes because of to respond to the climate shocks. Our longer-term plan is more to work with the government, the state, so that we build the capacity of the state, local communities.
UN peacekeepers from Pakistan and Mongolia are helping local teams to build and watch over the flood barriers. These strong walls help stop the water from reaching homes, camps and UN offices. In 2022, a break in one of the walls put 300,000 people's lives at risk.
The state of Israel and Iran continue to be on edge, gearing up for any eventuality if Washington's nuclear talks with Tehran do not yield a positive result. The United Nations Atomic Agency has warned that Iran is, of course, stepping up the production of enriched uranium. In the thick of its talks with the United States, it has said that Iran has increased its stockpile of uranium enriched to up to 60% in less than 4 months. The United Nations nuclear watchdog has said that Iran's cooperation with the agency is less than satisfactory. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has reacted to the IAEA report, saying that the report is a clear warning sign that Iran is totally determined to complete its nuclear weapons program. In the wake of the recent reports of an imminent strike on its nuclear facilities, Iran has issued a notice to air missions for the next 2 days. Tehran has been aggressively increasing the capabilities of its missile systems, ensuring that it has more nuclear-capable weaponry in its arsenal. And recently, Iran unveiled a new solid-fuel ballistic missile called the Qasim Bashir, which has a range of 1,200 kilometers. Its increasing stockpile of weapons having a nuclear payload include the medium-range ballistic missiles such as Khorram Sheher, the Shahab 3 and Sejil. It also includes the intermediate-range missiles such as Imad and Ghadar. The Iranian officials have dismissed speculation about an imminent nuclear deal with the United States, emphasizing that any agreement must fully lift sanctions and should allow the country's nuclear program to continue.
The fact that they say we shouldn't enrich uranium is an attempt to impose their dominance over us. Why shouldn't we enrich when international law gives us the right to do so? They tell us not to enrich because they are worried. But should the Iranian people give up their rights just because others are worried? This is unacceptable to the Iranian people because it means accepting the domination of others, whether we need enrichment or not, and we do need it.
Iran's Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh said that Tehran is ready to defend itself in case of any attack. He also added that Iran has no hostility to its neighboring nations, but US bases in the region will be considered as clear targets by Tehran. The reports suggest that Israel has been preparing itself to launch strikes on Iran's nuclear bases for many months. Reports also say that the US intel has gathered information regarding the movement of Israeli troops and air munitions in the West Asian region. The report further says that Israel has recently conducted air drills and is waiting for US President Donald Trump's nod to attack Iran. Now, Israel has even conducted strikes targeting Syria's coastal city of Latakia and Tartus, saying that it has struck a weapon storage facility containing missiles that posed a threat to international and Israeli maritime freedom of navigation. Now, according to a Reuters report, Saudi Arabia's Defense Minister Prince Khalid bin Salman held a closed-door meeting in Tehran with the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in April. Now, during the meeting, the Saudi prince reportedly warned Iran that Trump had little patience for drawn-out negotiations and that it would be better to reach a deal with the US then face the possibility of an Israeli attack if the talks were to break down.
The Israel Defense Forces are now using laser weapons on the battlefield. The Defense Ministry confirmed it deployed directed energy weapon systems to shoot down aerial threats in combat zones, marking what could be a global first. Israel says 2 laser systems intercepted dozens of aerial threats, most launched by Hezbollah from Lebanon. The IDF released video showing drones falling from the sky hit midair by precision laser beams. Officials didn't say how many interceptions were successful. The directed energy weapons used were early models of the Iron Beam, a 100 kilowatt system still technically in development. The Iron Beam is designed to destroy drones, rockets, and mortars for just $5 a shot. Compare that to missile interceptors, which could cost tens of thousands to millions of dollars per shot. Officials say the full-strength version of Iron Beam will be ready later this year. Rafael and Elbit, the Israeli defense contractors building Iron Beam, claim it's the first high-power laser ever used successfully in war. Ukraine made the same claim of its Trizub system a couple months ago. So until the two sides compare notes, we don't know exactly who was first to use a laser in combat. But make no mistake, lasers have limits. They struggle in cloudy weather and can miss extremely fast or evasive targets. Still, Israel plans to make them a core part of its air defense, alongside the Iron Dome and Arrow systems. US-based Lockheed Martin is also working with Rafael to develop the Iron Beam further. The US also tested lasers in the Middle East, but kept most of those details classified. Other countries are racing to match the technology. The UK tested its Dragonfire laser last year, hitting aerial targets with extreme accuracy. South Korea says its forces are also deploying lasers to protect certain installations. With drone threats multiplying, laser systems offer a cheaper, faster response. But experts warn future drones may carry countermeasures that could blunt the tech's edge.
Gloves are off. The West has just allowed Ukraine to strike deep. No more range limits, no more red lines. For the first time, Kyiv is free to strike Russian military targets deep inside enemy territory. Anywhere, anytime. And this is a seismic shift in the war, and it could send shockwaves all the way to the Kremlin. Until now, Ukraine's hands were tied. Last October, former US President Joe Biden gave the green light for limited strikes only on Russian military targets close to the Ukrainian border. The message was clear: strike, but don't escalate. But the rules have now changed. It seems Kyiv's Western allies are done with half measures. Now, Ukraine can rain fire on Russian airfields, command posts, ammunition depots, and logistics hubs far behind the front. Reacting to this, Moscow says West lifting range limits on Ukraine, it arms quite dangerous. Ukraine's arsenal is formidable. It has the HIMARS system with a guided multiple launch rocket system up to 50 kilometers. Not just that, US ATACMS missiles with 300 kilometers range. Storm Shadow and Anglo-French cruise missile with a maximum range of around 300 kilometers. And these are not just weapons. They are game changers. But up to now, strict orders meant that they could only be used on Russian forces inside occupied Ukrainian lands. And that leash is now gone. Kyiv now holds the power to hit the Russian war machine where it hurts the most. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz summed it up clearly, saying that there are no longer any range restrictions on weapons supplied to Ukraine, not from the British, not from the French, not from Germany, and not from America either. Merz asserts Ukraine can now also defend itself by attacking military positions in Russia. Merz had long signaled that he will break from his predecessor Olaf Scholz's caution. The Taurus cruise missile, with its 500-kilometer reach, could now soon join the Ukraine arsenal if Berlin gives the final nod. And this move is a new threat for Moscow. No supply line, no command bunker, no airbase within range of Ukrainian missiles are now safe. The West has now made it clear Ukrainian forces will no longer fight with one hand tied behind its back. With range restrictions lifted, the battlefield just got a lot bigger and also a lot deadlier for Russia.
News that we are following right now as we continue our coverage. This is some of the video that you were looking at out of Iran, but we've learned that Iran has further increased its stockpile of uranium enriched to near weapons-grade levels. That's from a confidential report by the United Nations nuclear watchdog. They said it really moments ago, and it called on Tehran to urgently change course and comply with the agency's probe. The report comes at a sensitive time as Tehran and Washington have been holding those rounds of talks over a possible nuclear deal that President Trump is trying to reach. The report by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which was seen by the Associated Press, says that as of May 17th, Iran has amassed a total of 900 pounds of uranium enriched up to 60%. That's an increase of about 300 pounds since the IAEA's last report, which was just months ago in February. That material is a short technical step away from weapons-grade levels of 90%. A report in February put the stockpile somewhere around 605 pounds. The IAEA chief, Rafael Mariano Grossi, has stressed repeatedly that, quote, Iran is the only non-nuclear weapon state enriching to this level. On Saturday, Grossi said, quote, he reiterates his urgent call upon Iran to cooperate fully and effectively with the IAEA. On Thursday, senior Iranian officials dismissed speculation about an imminent nuclear deal with the U.S., emphasizing that any agreement must fully lift sanctions and allow the country's nuclear program to continue. Again, all of this information here coming in at this hour. Take a look once again at your screen, as the comments did come a day after Trump said that he told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to hold off on striking Iran to give the U.S. administration more time to push for a new nuclear deal with Tehran. We are going to keep you updated here on all of the latest developments on this breaking news as we continue to follow all of it on Live Now from Fox.
It has to be clear to all that Beijing is credibly preparing to potentially use military force to alter the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. We know, it's public, that Xi has ordered his military to be capable of invading Taiwan by 2027. The PLA is building the military needed to do it, training for it every day, and rehearsing for the real deal. Admiral Paparo has spoken very clearly about this on multiple occasions. Again, to be clear, any attempt by Communist China to conquer Taiwan by force would result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. NATO members are pledging to spend 5% of their GDP on defense, even Germany. So it doesn't make sense for countries in Europe to do that while key allies in Asia spend less on defense in the face of an even more formidable threat, not to mention North Korea. China envies what we have together, and it sees what we can collectively bring to bear on defense. But it's up to all of us to ensure that we live up to that potential by attempt by Communist China to conquer Taiwan by force would result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. The threat China poses is real, and it could be imminent. Deterrence starts in our own backyard. But beyond our borders and beyond our neighborhood, we are reorienting toward deterring aggression by Communist China. Asian allies should look to countries in Europe as a newfound example. NATO members are pledging to spend 5% of their GDP on defense, even Germany. So it doesn't make sense for countries in Europe to do that while key allies in Asia spend less on defense in the face of an even more formidable threat, not to mention North Korea.
എന്ന അവസ്ഥ ഫുള്ള് മുങ്ങിനി ചരിത്രത്തിൽ ആദ്യമായിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനത്തെ വലിയൊരു തണ്ണി കയറിയത് പണ്ട് ചെറുതായിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ പണ്ട് പള്ളി താഴ്ചയിലുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഏതായാലും ഇന്നത്തെ ജുമ നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് ഈ പള്ളിയിൽ
Thank you.